What's up, y'all? FarmerQ here, and today we're on a job site. I just wanted to show y'all a little bit of what I do for work, and I get out here and I get after it too. So today we're going to be adding a valve to a system. In fact, we're going to be replacing a valve that was once existing in the system because the pool guys decided it would be a good idea to completely bury everything in the backyard. So we're going to be tapping into the main line. We're going to be tapping into the existing wiring because we got lucky that the wire is right where we're going to be adding the valve, and then we're going to be testing it out. So stick with me while I show y'all how I go about changing a valve out in a system. So let's get it. So the first thing I wanted to show y'all that I do before I make any modifications to the system is that if I have access to this guy right here, which is called the double check, which is the backflow device, come right over here and I'll turn off one of these levers right here. So now you see there's two ball valves. One is in line on and one is off. And if I want to make extra sure that we're good to go, I'll go ahead and turn this one off too. So now we have both of the check valves turned completely off. We're ready to get started. So before we get started, I want to show y'all a few things. So we have a few pipes here. The pipe there on the very top is one of the lateral lines. The pipe here is also a lateral line, despite it being 1 inch. Usually with residential main lines, they're 1 inch. And this one's 1 inch as well, but it's considered a lateral line because, as you can see, it connects right to this head over here. And that's one thing you have to really be watching for when you're about to make modifications to a system, because if I would have tapped into that line right there, I would have had no water. So I wanted to give y'all a showing of the other pipe that's underneath this pipe. So there you go. You can see that the pipe underneath here is trying to hide, but that right there is actually the main line. So I'm going to be tapping into that pipe. I'm going to wrap it around and I'm going to tap it back into the top pipe right there, because basically the valve that we're looking for is located in the backyard and there's no access to it. So what we want to do is tap into the line and create a new access point for a new valve. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is dig this little area out to the side here. Oops. Move this wire out of the way. I'm going to dig this area out right here because this is where the valve's going to be going. So we're just getting this sawzall up in here. We're going to cut this just like this. Gotta be careful though. Okay. There we go. Alright, so now that we've gotten our section of pipe cut out that we plan to tie in to the lateral line, we're just clearing some dirt away from the actual pipe so that we can get an easier cut and that we can actually work with the lateral line a little bit easier. And as you can see, I'm using my hands here to just kind of clear out an area on the pipe and to get water or to get mud the rest of the way out of the hole, because the water is going to come in handy, but we want to get some of this existing mud out of the area, and that's simple enough. So now I'm just getting a piece of pipe that I have here, and I'm going to cut a small segment of that pipe off so that I can then use this pipe to actually start constructing what I'm going to use to tie the main line into the lateral line. Now that we've gotten that cut, we're just getting a 90 that we plan to attach to the main line down there, and we're going to add some primer as well as glue to it, but we want to make sure to get that existing dirt off with the primer before we add our glue. You see me here just lining up the pipes to make sure that they cross at the right point. And whenever your pipes are touching at the very end of both pipes, you're in a good spot to actually add that pipe. So what we're doing here is adding primer, followed by our glue, which is a solvent which attaches the pipes together. And we're just getting the other pipe primed up. And that primer helps get any existing dirt off of the pipe, as well as makes the glue adhere to the pipe all the better. So as you can see here, we're just adding some glue to our fitting after adding the primer. Then we're going to add some glue over here to the pipe as well, which is the main line, so that we can attach the pipe segment that we just created. And now that we have that attached and it's nice and secure, we can now come in with the next piece of the pipe segment that we're creating for the valves to go in. We're just going to line everything up before we do that. So the next piece that we're adding is a 90, and that 90 is going to put us in a spot to where we can then attach the valve. So we're just getting our pipe lined up with the 90 in place so that we know exactly where we need to put it. As you can see, I've applied glue to the pipe, and I'm going to attach the pipe to the 90 first, and then attach the 90 with the pipe on it to the actual spot. But before we do that, we're going to cut the pipe off that we need to allow the valve to sit in place where we want it to sit. So you can see here I'm cutting the piece of pipe off, and I'm adding a little bit of primer to actually soften the pipe up before I add the valve to the piece of pipe. So you see the flow direction is actually pointing in the right direction. So always make sure you're looking at that arrow when you're adding the valve so that you know that your water is going in the right direction. Yes, I've made that mistake before. So now we're just applying some glue after applying our primer to the pipe so that we can add our next segment of pipe. We have it slightly tilted up so that we can line our valve up with the other pipe before we actually connect it to the other pipe. You see here I'm adding glue, adding primer first, then adding glue to the valve, as well as the pipe that I plan to add the valve to. And it went right on, and it's now sitting exactly where I want it to sit. The next part of what we're gonna do is add a piece of pipe to the valve, but we're gonna add it where we want the other pipe to attach. And I'm just kind of lining it up right now. And you'll see exactly what I mean, because the two pipes are going to literally line up in exactly the same spot. So just stick with me and you'll see exactly what I mean here. I'm adding glue to the valve here so that I can add my piece of pipe to the valve. Takes a little work here, but I got it. Once I get that attached, I'm then going to use a section of pipe to determine exactly where we're going to attach to the other pipe. And you see how they cross, and it tells you where the fitting is going to be in that space. That's exactly how I measure pipe when I'm adding my fittings. In this particular instance, it's going to be a lot easier because we're just adding a 90. And what I did then was just mark the spot on the dirt to where I'm going to cut the pipe so that we can put our fitting in exactly the right spot. So now I make my cut. And I'm going to make another cut after this to actually put a hole in the pipe so that we can work with the area. And that's right here. So now you see there's a space in the pipe, and the pipes are lined up exactly where the valve is. So now I'm just splashing a little bit of mud onto the pipe here so that we can get it clean enough to apply our primer and everything. But I want to make sure that most of the mud is off there, because the primer is really to soften the pipe as well as allow the glue to adhere to it. So we don't want too much dirt on there. So now I'm using the primer to get the rest of the dirt off, as well as get the pipe ready to be glued onto on both sides. And you see I'm really working hard to get that dirt off of there, because I don't want dirt to be where my pipe is actually connected with the glue. Making extra sure. So now that we have everything in place that we want, I'm just gonna put my pipe here to make sure that the fitting is gonna go exactly where I want it to go, which it is looking like it is. So I'm just gonna get my fitting primed up here on both sides, and I'm gonna get my pipe primed as well, because I'm basically gonna glue everything except for one fitting in this particular action. So now that we've gotten everything primed up, we're gonna go ahead and get our glue here and apply it to both pieces. And once we do that, we can attach the pipe to the 90 that we plan to put in the slot to connect the two pipes. And you see I just lined it up to make sure we're still good, and I'm adding my glue and I'm making the connection. And as you can see, once I make the connection, we're still lined up exactly where we want to be, and the pipe has flexibility, so even if we're a little bit off, we can still add our 90 with relative ease. Now I'm applying my primer to that pipe so that we can make our final connection. Add our glue to everything, both pipes, and then both segments of the fitting. This is the mad rush point right here. So now I just get my glue applied right there onto that pipe, and we have glue at all points. And from this point right here, we're gonna go ahead and attach our fitting. And you can see the technique I use. I add it and use the lubrication to put it in position and then push the other pipe right into place. And once I do that, I literally hold it in place for a few seconds to make sure that the glue has enough time to cure a little bit. And from that point, I can let it go. And here I'm just adding my valve box into the spot where it's gonna go so that I can determine that it is below the fence line there, so that we can have the dirt level be in the right spot. And now I'm doing a little trick where I add landscape fabric to the valve box openings so that we can prevent dirt getting into the valve box in the future. It's a pretty effective technique. And at this point, we can start to put dirt onto those pieces of landscape fabric, which traps other dirt from getting inside of the box. We put our top on, show that the level is exactly where we want it, and then we start to bury in our valve box.
All right, y'all, that's a successful repair down. Y'all know what that means. That's FarmerQ out.